Hey, got on to the geeks. We're back. It's me and Nasser again.
What's going on, everyone?
Nasser, tell me, are you excited today?
Yeah, I'm really excited, especially as someone, I think I've mentioned it on the show before. I'm doing a complete Spider-Man read through from 62 to present. So it's not that long ago that I went through our guest's run on the book. So I have all this stuff fresh in my mind right now. So
And guys, if you don't know who this gentleman is, Erik Larsen is one of the founders who rocked the industry back in the day, who basically was the team that created Image and created Savage Dragon, worked on Spider-Man, and he's going to be working on a new series that's going to be dropping right before the movie. I'm sorry, not the movie, the show on
check.
on Amazon, Spider-Man Noir. Erik Larsen is huge. I am honored to have him on the podcast. Let's get him in the room. Mr. Erik.
Hey, hey,
How you doing,
seemed to
sir?
work. I'm all right.
Oh, wow. I don't even know where to start with you, sir.
I know where to start right off the bat. Daredevil in the fat suit.
It's not my fault.
Like I was telling Ray, I'm doing a complete Spider-Man read through, so I'm reading all the main ongoing titles from 62 to present. So I recently just went through your era of the book, and yeah, that was definitely something that stuck out in my mind. That the first time you get to be on a Spidey book, they put you on that.
Yeah, no, it was like that was such a weird, chaotic time because DeFalco and friends had started a story in that book, and I don't know what happened. Somehow that relationship with Marvel or the editor or something fell apart, and then the editor took over as the writer, and it's just mad scramble of trying to get artists to fill in, and it was me and it was Alan Kupperberg, and they just basically they need this book in a couple weeks. Can you do it? And it's like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Good Lord. So trial by fire. But it wasn't, it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't like Spider-Man in his traditional Spider-Man costume. It was Spider-Man in the black costume, which at the time was just like, okay, the novelty had kind of worn off in that already. It wasn't even like he had just gotten it. He'd had it for a little while. So it's like,
yeah,
all right. And then the plot was just jam full of so much stuff that I couldn't really open it up much at all. There ended up being kind of very few panels or a lot of panels per page. Like it's like everything's all crammed together, and it's like this isn't my best work. But they needed a warm body, and my body was warm, so off we went.
I mean, they thought it was good enough that they put you on the book later on. So,
well, they had some other guy do it for a little while.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear you say that. Like, you didn't really know what was going on with DeFalco and friends and all that, because that's one of those like stories that I love, like digging into and reading more about. That whatever was going on with DeFalco and friends and Christopher Priest and all that. So, as an artist, you had no idea what's happening in the offices, or?
Oh no, not at all. Because
okay.
I'm sitting here. I'm on the West Coast, so I had no idea what was going on in the world around me.
Oh, okay. I guess during that time, I just assumed everyone's coming into the Marvel offices every day and stuff. So.
No, yeah, not at all. They just, I think I was sending samples in left and right, trying to get some kind of something, and
Wow.
and they just reached their hand in the hat and pulled out my name and decided, okay, I guess this guy's doing an issue of Spider-Man.
It's his turn, huh?
Yeah, I was working on the DN Agents over at Eclipse Comics with Mark Evanier at the time. So that was my regular gig, although it ended up being a fairly short little run. And then at that point, I'm just anything I can find. So I was knocking on doors at DC and knocking on doors at Marvel. I had an editor over at DC who seemed to like my stuff, Mike Gold. He was kind of he had wanted to get me on Teen Titans. That was his, I think, what he wanted. And so I did a couple issues of Teen Titans Spotlight. I did a Secret Origins of Nightwing, and I did an issue of Teen Titans. And it just didn't happen. So
Was this like during the time like George needed a break and you filled in? Or?
he had completed his run, and I think Eduardo Barreto was also kind of on. He had done his stint as well, so I think it was just sort of like, all right, we need somebody to do something. I'm not sure exactly where that all fell in. They had done the hardcover, and they were doing this hardcover softcover idea where they would do a Baxter book, and then a year later they would put it on newsprint.
Yeah.
And George started the book, and I guess they thought this is going to be awesome, but George didn't last very long. And then Jose Luis Garcia Lopez did a short little 6-issue stint, and then Eduardo Barreto, and then it just became mayhem at a certain point.
I've heard you say in other interviews that it was Marv that didn't want you on the book. Did
Oh,
Marv ever tell you?
Yeah, I drew an issue of Adventures of Superman, and I don't think he much cared for that. I don't know what the deal was, but whatever reason, I don't care anymore.
I think it all worked out for you.
Worked out all right. I ended up on the Doom Patrol, did that book for about a year, and then I came back over and did some Marvel stuff. I did the Punisher, and then Marvel Comics Presents, and then I was back on Amazing Spider-Man for a little while.
Cool.
So Erik, at what age did you say this is the career I'm going to choose to go down?
Oh, I knew what I wanted to do really, really early on. So,
wow,
like 4th grade or something, something like that. I started drawing my own comics when I was in 4th grade. They would be 8.5 by 11, folded in half and stapled up the side. And I was just creating my own characters. That's when I did this rip-off of Batman that I called the Dragon. And instead of having 2 ears, he had one fin in the middle, and he had the mask, but he drove a cool car, and he had a utility belt, and he just had all the Batman crap. And as time went on, when I was a little kid, I just got tired of drawing his big cape and all this other serrated gloves and all this crap. So and at one point he was a guy who would change into another dude, and I just had no interest whatsoever in his secret identity, and so he was just a dragon all the time. And eventually it's like, I should probably just get rid of this secret identity entirely. And so I pulled him apart and made him into 2 different guys. And then one just became this green skinned dragon guy. And then the other went off to obscurity.
I know you've mentioned in other interviews how you lost a lot of your collection in the fire. Do you still have any of that early dragon stuff from when you were a kid?
No, I don't have any of that. That all burned up. So the only thing that me and a couple buddies self-published a comic called Graphic Fantasy when I was 19, and that was kind of the culmination of everything I had done as a kid. Because I had done like 55 issues of dragon or dragon related comics, and then I did like 10 or 12 issues of the Deadly Duo. So I had this kind of mountain of stuff, but then I ended it off with this graphic fantasy story, and then it was like that was the end of it. Then I went from there to working my way up the food stream and getting into professional comics. But when it came time for Image, I had characters that I had created, so there was something that I could go, okay, well, I've got a dude, and I've got a bunch of characters that I can just dust off or update their costumes or whatever.
Wow.
So was there ever
So
a sliding door moment that instead of Savage Dragon, there could have been something else that you released first at Image?
uh initially, yeah, I had thought about doing Super Patriot because
Oh, okay.
me and Fabian Nicieza had pitched Marvel on us doing taking over X Factor. So there was just before Larry Stroman came on the book with Peter David. We had done a pitch, and I think Rob had pitched the idea of doing it too, I think. But he would have just done like rough layouts and had some other artist work on it. And I think I was thinking the same, as I would just do rough layouts and then have some other artist uh, pencil on top of that and whatever. Needless to say, I had created this look for this. We were going to take the Crimson Commando and turn him into just called the Commando, and he was just going to be this kind of cyborg guy.
Okay.
And Fabian had done all the work in these X annuals one year, and he had taken Crimson Commando and blown his arms off and really just messed him up so that he could be ready to be turned into this commando guy. And then in the pages of Spider-Man, when I did that limited run, I had this, there's that Cyborg X dude
Hmm.
that was going to be Commando, and I had penciled in what would become the Super Patriot costume. And the editor was like, I can't have a guy with a flag mask shooting up a mall. You got to change this guy. So I ended up changing him, and then at that point I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna put this guy aside and save this super awesome character, and I will change it into this crappy guy, and you can have the crappy guy because you won't let me use my super awesome guy.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's how Cyborg X came to be. And that at that point, when we started Image, part of my brain was going, I need to use that guy ASAP. Um, but then that was just a passing fancy because I was like, I don't want to draw that guy all the time.
Oh, so you know, being a comic book artist and creator, did you ever feel that you would touch younger kids' lives as making them inspire them to be comic book creators and stuff like that? Like Chris Gorsher, he was a huge fan of your dragon,
Hmm.
and later on down the line, you get to work together. I mean, how does that feel? Getting that you reached somebody and converted them into.
I mean, I don't think about it, and I don't think most people think I'm shaping minds, and you know, I think you just sitting there going, I want to draw, I want to do this. This was my career, and I want to make comics and be able to do this forever. I don't think you're necessarily going, hey, look at that. There's all these people behind me that want to do the same thing. What have I created? My God.
Well, I
So
mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so yeah, definitely understandable that you're not thinking about it at the time because you're trying to forge your own path and make your own career. But now that you've been in it so long and you have seen the people come behind you, now does
No,
it hit you?
it's definitely cool. And then you see different people do different stuff and go, oh, that guy's looking at my version of Spider-Man. He's not looking at Todd's version, or watch sitting there going and watching the movies and going, oh, look, they gave Venom that big slobbery tongue. I gave him that big slobbery tongue. I remember that.
Mhm.
So
Oh man, it's awesome
so
that you have touched the industry the way you have.
welcome to it. I guess I just want to be able to continue to do what I've been doing for this whole time. So Let me do
So,
more of that, please.
so in your origin story, who were you looking at, Eric? Were there anybody that you were aping when you were getting started?
When I was really little, I'm still super into Jack Kirby stuff, and so he was a huge influence. I think Herb Trimpe was my I would consider
Wow.
him my gateway drug
Oh, I
because
love Herb stuff. Yeah.
my brother had got a bunch of Hulk comics at school, and he had traded with some kid or whatever, and he came back and he was like, "I'll give you these if you do the dishes for a week." And I was like,
All right.
I can do that. So I ended up with this little run of the book, and that so it was like, oh, this is easy for me to be. I'm going to get into this book because I've got a chunk of them, whereas everything else seemed to be an issue here, an issue there.
Hmm.
So, and I had one issue of the Incredible Hulk really early on as just a random comic that wandered into my life. And I think I had an issue of Iron Man. I still am not really sure what issue that was, but those were very like formative and for my young existence, like, oh, this is this awesome thing. Hulk is on issue 156. You mean there are 155 more of these? I didn't know that there weren't, but it's still at the time it was like, this is pretty exciting that there's all this stuff out there. And all these books were really far along. Fantastic Four was, getting up there.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is really exciting. Like, man, oh man, comics are awesome. And I just, once I started buying around 1974, 1975, I just threw myself into it and I was just buying anything I could get my hands on. But there's a period there where DC comics were 20 cents and Marvel were
Yeah.
25. And so I was like, all right, I can get 5 of these for the price of 4 of these. So that little window, I was getting more DC
Yeah.
books than, but
Well,
it
well, so
didn't. It never hung. It stayed. I was
yeah.
more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy. And when Kirby came back to Marvel, I was just on cloud nine. Everything was awesome.
Yeah, and you're growing up then around that time. I guess you're looking at Ross Andrew and Gil Kane
Yeah,
and
Ross
Romita
Andrew is
Jr.
there.
Yeah.
Gil Kane, Rich Buckler was over on Fantastic Four, and then later George Perez was on
Yeah.
Fantastic Four. I was there as John Byrne's career really started because I just love comics so much that if I went to the store and they didn't have everything I loved, I would just be like, well, I've got money in my pocket. I'm going to buy whatever is here that I don't have. And
Yeah.
so I got into E-Man because that was a comic book that existed and it was on issue 4 or something. I was like, okay, E-Man, he's
Yeah.
awesome. And that
Uh-huh.
and that introduced me to Joe Staton, and then John Byrne did some backups in there, and then John did Doomsday Plus One and did issues of Space 1999 and
Mhm.
just various things. And I could see both him and Joe Staton were like these trains rumbling down the track, like these guys are coming, here they come. And so when they started doing work over at Marvel, I was like, all right, I was there from the beginning, and it was just
Yeah.
cool to see that early stuff. Suddenly Burns doing Iron Fist and
Mhm.
doing whatever else they would let him do. He was doing
Yeah.
Marvel Team Up and some, it's early stuff, Champions, what have you. And then I just got to see him find his voice over time and then become this force.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was getting all that, everything I could find.
Mhm.
Early George Perez, and he was jumping around from this book to that. It was all over the place, and then eventually settled in on the Teen Titans. I was there for all that. Walter Simonson, I got introduced to him on Detective Comics. He was doing that Manhunter story with
Oh
R.G.
yeah.
Goodwin.
Hmm.
So that was, I thought that was great stuff. I was getting those 100 pagers all the time. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Everything is great. It's just like, oh man, I just remember being like, I hope I don't ever grow up and hate comics because I love them so much.
And here you are with box after box behind you.
I know. It's just like, all right.
So do you
That's not
still
happening.
see some of those formative influences in your work even today, Eric?
Oh yeah, I look at my own stuff and it just looks like a patchwork of everybody I love. It's just like I know I got this from this guy and this from that guy. It's like, oh
Because
crap.
I've always
Hope it's
wondered the
not as obvious to the rest of the world.
Yeah. I've always wondered the progression from those guys like Gil Kane and John Byrne and stuff to what we ended up seeing in the 90s with you and Todd and Rob and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where's the through line there? Because it seems like
Uh,
you guys were
it
so like hyper action focused and kind of stuff like that, you know?
it's various guys kind of uh Michael Golden at one point came in and was doing some stuff and he had just done a couple little things, but those were hugely influential on us. So he did like a couple Marvel fanfare stories. He did with Spider-Man, and then he did one that where Spider-Man had met the Hulk, and then he did the Nam, and we were just like, eh, we want to take everything that you have, all of your toys. We want all that stuff. And
Yeah.
then Arthur Adams was clearly looking at
Oh,
him
yeah.
and Miller and Simonson and whoever else was out there, Kaluta. There's a bunch of guys that he was just kind of taking things from and building his own thing. And then, so we were just like, oh, I'll take some of that too. So I had a bunch of Simonson in my stuff and a bunch of Gil Kane in my stuff. And there's various things I could point to and go, okay, this panel here, that's Herb Trimpe. This over here, it's just some other dude. And there's always, Neil Adams was this big force, and Barry Windsor Smith was looming there. Unfortunately, a lot of those guys kind of stopped doing comics right when I started reading comics. So while I'd heard of Barry Smith, he wasn't actively doing comics when I started because he had just dropped off the face of the earth as far as I knew. But like the Marvel Treasury Edition that collected Red Nail story, I was like, oh, everything about this is cool.
Yeah.
And then Neil, I bought like his last Batman story, which was Batman fighting some werewolf in one of those 100-page issues. And I was like, oh, this guy's so awesome. And then suddenly he was gone. And it would be years before Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Suddenly it's like, oh, there he is. But I think when you're trying to learn how to do this stuff, you're just taking in everything you can. There's all these different artists who've done stuff all over the place. And my dad read comics when he was a little kid. So I grew up with his old comic book collection. And in that, there was like just a wild array of different stuff. So there's stuff that CC Beck was doing on Captain Marvel that I was like, all right, I'll take some of that. And just different weird guys who were somebody's over here doing something I like. And you just take pieces like, oh, I like the way this guy draws the shine on something. I'm gonna do that. I love the way this guy draws rubble. Suddenly their rubble is all over your stuff.
Were you looking at anything that wasn't comics, comic strips, or Frazetta fantasy work, or anything like that?
Little of this and that. Some book illustrators that I liked. I like the Oz series a lot. So there's John R. Neal was doing stuff there that I really liked. But a lot of those, yeah, Bill. I mean, eventually Bill Watterson doing Calvin and Hobbes played a big part. I always liked Peanuts, but I don't think I got anything artistically out of that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a number of guys, but a lot of those were doing were being reprinted in comics too. So like my
Yeah.
dad had all these little Abner comic books, but those
Oh,
were just
okay.
reprints of stuff from the strips. And he
Yeah.
had Dick Tracy comic books, but again, that's from the strips, and Blondie
Yeah.
was from the strips, and I don't know where some of those I don't know where Mopsy came from, but he had a bunch of Mopsy comics, so okay, dude.
All right.
And he got
So,
all the EC stuff. So we had all
Oh,
the
okay.
Graham Ingalls and Wally Wood and all that awesome stuff. So there's a lot of me just looking at Wally Wood going, how the hell did he do all this cool stuff? And
Yeah.
just trying to pick it apart and trying to recreate stuff as best I could.
Yeah.
And they just, ingest it all and then
Yeah.
regurgitate it onto the page.
So it definitely sounds like, I mean, you got your comic habit from your dad, but once you decided you wanted to make comics, were they supportive of it?
Generally
Eh.
they didn't shoot me down. They were, I think they kind of indulged me as best they could, and because really seemed laser focused on this one goal, and it helps that I did get some early stuff. Like I was 19 when I self-published graphic fantasy, and then I started getting some, small black and white stuff at that age. So, when I worked on Megaton, that was at that age, and I did something for a book called Wonder World Express, and then each little job led to the next little job someplace else, and I was doing stuff at Americomics, and
Mhm.
wow.
it was just a lot of it just is a matter of just repetition.
Mhm.
It's like when you start off, your work is all over the place because you haven't figured out how to draw anything yet.
Mm.
So it's like, well, what does a hand look like? I guess I'll sit here and look at my hand. And then after a while, you're not even thinking about that anymore. It's like, well, I know what a hand looks like. Blap, there's a hand.
Mhm.
I know what nose looks like from any kind of angle. Whereas when you're starting off, it's just everything is such a struggle. People are in a kitchen. How do I draw somebody sitting in a chair? It's so impossible. And then after a while, it's just I don't have to really think about this. But then the problem becomes after you've been doing it a while, you don't want to just draw that same panel that you've got dialed in over and over and over again. So you keep trying to find, well, what's a different approach that I can do to this?
Mhm.
And then you run into why am I doing the fifth best panel I could do when I could be doing my best panel? What the hell am I even doing here? That's there's no winning. You just do the best you can and hope people
Yeah.
like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, for what we're here for today, you
Yes,
are working on a new series.
I am.
And so I was wanting to ask, what time frame are we looking at? Is it just taking place in the 70s, 60s? Where are we looking at for a
Oh,
time frame?
it's 1939.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So yeah, it's way back there. It's pre-war stuff. He
Oh,
wanted him
nice.
to be fighting Nazis, but we
Oh,
weren't
wow.
we weren't involved in World War II yet. So there's a bunch of stuff that was kind of going on in and around that period of time. There was a big Nazi rally that went on at Madison Square Garden that I was like, this is just sitting there. I have to use this.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
wow.
also the World Fair was in town, so that had been what was going on. So get a touch on that a little bit, and
Oh,
that was also the year that Wizard of Oz came out. So
Mm.
I can touch on that at least a little bit and have there be some back and forth with Peter and Aunt May about that. So it's kind of a fun period to play around with. But it is a pain in the ass to do any of that stuff because every single thing you have to think about and go, wait a minute, were people even using that word yet? And how is that being used at the time?
Wow.
But
Were you
again,
familiar with Spider Noir, or did you have to go back and look at his
well, he
previous series?
barely appears in the movies. He is like you count up all his screen time, and it's like less than 15 minutes. He's barely there. In that, he says he is from 1933 and was fighting Nazis, and that seems kind of early. I think the first Spider-Man Noir miniseries was set in 1933, but they're all over the place. There's been several different series, and each time it seems like whoever's working on it is doing something else entirely different. Like I'm doing a horror book, and the next guy's like, I'm doing a superhero book, and the next guy's like, I'm doing like Indiana Jones, except it's got Spider-Man instead. It's like, holy crap, man. Pick a lane.
So what was your approach to it?
So, well, I knew he was Spider-Man, so I kind of wanted to do a Spider-Man story, um, and kind of real Spider-Man-y trappings of, okay, I want it to be urban. I don't want him to be with a freaking whip and riding on the back of a train. It's like, let's do Spider-Man being Spider-Man in a semi-Spider-Man setting. I want Aunt May to be in it. Mary Jane's in it. I thought, okay, well, I can Gwen Stacy, and let's do a little, whatever, romantic triangle and have some fun with the Spider-Man aspects of Spider-Man. And at the same time, the book seemed like it was so open because there were very few villains that had been established, and all the villains seemed to be Marvel, like modern Spider-Man villains that had just been kind of warmed over. Like they're going, hey, here's Dr. A little different because he's from 1933, so he's going to have this instead. And here's Electro, but he's got a little different because it's like just so my thing coming on there is let Spider-Man Noir his own rogues gallery, and let's give Spider-Man Noir his own supporting cast, and I'll keep a handful of characters that so Aunt May is going to be there, MJ, whatever. Those will still be there, but I'm gonna add just tons of, like, the girl who's at the diner that he goes to, and then there's these little kids that are big Spider-Man fans that are running all of them, and then there's just various regular people that he's running into, and then all the villains are new Nazis and craziness. So
Well, I love your approach that you're creating all new rogues for him, because it seems that nowadays, creators don't want to create a character that might make it to the video games or the movies or something like that. Understandably, right? You want to keep the best stuff for your own creator own stuff,
well,
but you've
here's my thing. I can create comic book characters on my own all day long, and I do. So I'm not sitting here going, I've just got the one idea. I'm sitting here going, I've got 9,000 ideas. I can't possibly draw them all. Why not use some of these in this other thing? And usually when I'm working on some other book like that, my brain is really what can I create for this particular character to go up against, right? So I'm not sitting there going, this is a character who would be a perfectly suitable Savage Dragon villain, but I'm going to take them and put them in Spider-Man. I'm creating a made for Spider-Man in Spider-Man. Like, it would be really weird for me to suddenly have all sorts of 1939 Nazis showing up in Savage Dragon. It would be like, what the hell are these guys doing?
the Savage Dragon
But
time travel story.
It's like, what? what's this all about? But it makes sense to do it then because, you've got all these pieces of stuff. And it's just kind of be able to play around with all that stuff. And the editor was kind of he'd sought me as just, I think he was thinking all these noir stories have always got a bunch of, patter between various and a little punch, and kind of funny and upbeat and just energy. And so I think he was looking at what I did and go, oh, you're going to give us a funny, fun Spider-Man book again, have that kind of snappy back and forth between these characters. It's like, yes, indeed, I can do that.
Nice.
And am I correct that you're the writer, not doing any art on this one, Eric?
I'm doing variant covers, but I'm not
Any interior?
like
Okay.
yeah, what you're showing there is a variant cover that I did, but I don't I'm not book, honestly.
So I've heard you talk about how you like working from plot only. So when you're working with a different artist, are you giving them just plot, or what are your scripts like?
I'm
Oh,
well,
okay.
on my own, I don't even write a plot. I just start drawing it. So
Okay.
I'm not even, I go into each issue with Savage Dragon with, I've got an idea in my head of what I want to do. And so I'll just put that down on paper because it's like, there's no point in me writing this out because I won't know till I'm drawing it how many pages this particular scene is going to take.
Yeah.
But when I'm working with another artist, I'll just be like, all right, well, let me determine all this stuff and then you take it from there. So I give them enough of an idea of what's going on that unless you really don't know what the hell you're doing, you should be able to figure it out. Because there's enough like, look, this is night and there's Spider-Man in and he's got guns a-blazing and there's a building behind him and that's a splash page. And then you turn the page, 2-page spread, gang of dudes and they're and there's enough there that you can go, okay, I get what he's after. It's
Okay.
and even a full script, you can go, I don't quite know what he means. So plot when you're giving somebody a plot, there's a little more room where you can kind of be a little more experimental and try different things out. And then you're not as hemmed in by some writer who's not necessarily as visually oriented.
Okay. So you're giving your artist more than just like, hey, they fight for 4 pages. Go.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. And I've had writers who just pages 8 through 16 fight, and then just here you go. I'm not doing that. It is broken down by page, and when there's dialogue in mind, I'll put that down just to give them the tone of what's going on. It'll be like, Peter is talking with Aunt May, and they're first she's asking him all sorts of personal questions, trying to avoid having those conversations with her because it's super awkward. And then it segues into her wanting him to get out and go to the fair and how wonderful it is and go see a movie and blah, blah, blah. And so, the artist could take this general idea of a conversation and, hey, we know that it's Aunt May and we know that it's Peter, um, and they'll just leave me room for copy. And then when I get that, I'm like, all right, there's a ton of room. I can say a million things, or there's not that much room, so I can't say as much. And it really just depends on how much space he gives me in terms of being scripted like. And it can really vary a lot. And they can also put you in places where you go, oh, there's no place to put these balloons. What the hell? And I just roll with it. And I kind of like the challenge of getting the pages and going, holy crap. there's room, or there's not enough room, or there's weird room where you go, oh, there's a bunch of room where I can put copy, but there's no way to link a balloon over to the dude I want to have talking. So I'm just going to have to do something else instead.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a fun way of doing comics, but it's really kind of haphazard and crazy. But it works out really well when it works out. And I mean, had I given this artist like layouts and said, okay, do this, it wouldn't have been as cool, because there's pages there were stuff that I never would have thought of. And then
Wow.
and it's like, oh, okay, I couldn't have given you that. So like that Peter and Aunt May page is like, that's a great looking page. Never in a million years like that. From like, oh, you could have used a little of my dynamics. I should have given you a sketch for that, but whatever. You just do what you can with it. I don't want him to feel hemmed in, though. I want him to feel like you can just go nuts with this stuff. I'll send him. I'll give sketches if that I have a strong idea of what they should look like. This guy's, name this and make him look like that. And if not, I'll just be like, give a description of what it is, and you make the most of it.
Yeah, and
the
the collaborative process is like one of my favorite things about comics, So
yeah, it definitely is. There's so many different ways of going with this stuff. And given the same story to 3 different artists, it would be completely different. In fact, as a kind of experiment, I used to have these dudes do backup stories in Savage Dragon. And artists would come up to me all the time, and they want to know, like, how do I break into comics? What do I do? And I was like, well, I mean, you can do a story here. You're not going to get anything for it, but I've got, it's either I'm running letters in the back of the book, or I can just have various guys do backup stories, just
Wow.
as a way of seeing if you can even do this. And I've had a few different guys. And one point, I gave essentially the same plot to 3 different artists, because I'd had this string of bad luck where I'd written plots for people, and then they just vanished off the face of the earth. I used to have, like, tell people, yeah, the easiest way to never be bothered by an artist ever again is to send them work. it's like they'll never hear from them. That'll be the end of it. So I did this Deadly Duo story, and I sent it off to 3 different guys, and they all delivered. And so it was interesting to go, oh, let me script these differently, and it now can be a running gag rather than what it would have been if we had done
yeah.
that. But I'd used different villains, some of the different wrappings to it, so if they came through, they wouldn't be exactly the same. Interesting to see how 3 different artists taking the same, essentially same, what they would turn that in. And they were all had very different approaches.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a fun way to make comics, I find. And also, just because you're scripting it after the stuff has been drawn, you get a better idea of, well, how much space are they leaving, and how can I fill that space with word balloons and item placement, so that the letterers aren't sitting there going, what, I don't know what to do here. So I send them, like, here is the page, here I've their page with all the balloons, so where all this stuff needs to go. Just follow this and it should work out fine.
Wow.
And it's a fun way to do comics. And I find that when you work with artists and you're doing full scripts, what I find too often happens is you will get, hey, here's the guy who's supposed to speak first, um, but he's on the right-hand side of the panel, and the guy who's supposed to speak second is on the left-hand side of the panel because they weren't thinking about it. They're just trying to draw it. And then once you get those pages, like, so am I going to have these word balloons where there's the two tails going opposite ways and a little sword fight going on? That it's just there can be so many problems when you do it from full script. You almost have to go, okay, well, here's a full script, but once you're done with it, I have to re-script it all over again to fit your art. And at that point, it's like, well, why don't we just do it this plot style way, and then I can just tailor it to your art anyway. So anyway, that's what I grew up with. That's when I got into comics. I always was given plots. The few times that I got full scripts was always like, okay, this is going to be some fun here, because I always screwed around with them anyway. Because I had one guy who the writer's like, okay, I'm doing a full script. And I was like, you just took your story and broke it down into 6-panel pages. Every page has got 6 panels. That's no fun for anybody, You've got a big group of villains showing up, and it's 1 panel on a page of 5 other panels. So with that, I was just like, all right, I'm going to take these panels and shove them onto another page and open this part up, and there's going to be the same number of panels in the same order, but I'm going to give some stuff more space than other things.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
So with the
such
new series,
pain in the ass. I had no business doing any of this stuff. I was so goddamn young. I was in my early 20s. I had hardly drawn my first anything. And I was just going to these seasoned pros and just going, that doesn't work. I'm doing something else. and they just let me do it. And I was like, holy crap.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really ballsy, much ballsier than I would have thought. Looking back on it, it's like, yeah, if somebody did this to me, I'd be furious. It didn't even occur to me that what I was doing was just so terrible, but oh well.
So, question I was going to ask is, with the new show coming out and Nicolas Cage portraying Spider-Man Noir, did you get any info from them saying, hey, this is what's going to go down in the show? So this is just pretty much completely separate.
No idea what they're doing. I have they didn't send me any outlines of what they had or anything. Wow. So I have no idea if this works in conjunction with this. I mean, maybe they'll look at this and be like, this is perfect. Or maybe they'll look at it and be like, what the hell?
We're not following any of that.
Well, because with the show coming out, people are going to watch the show and they're going to be like right now with Invincible. The comic's been out forever, but now people are coming to the store wanting to buy the comic because they never read the comic, but they watched the TV show. So I feel it's going to be the same way where people are going to be like, oh, Spider-Man Noir, we saw him in the movie, but now we need to know more backstory since there hasn't been much on him. So do you think this is going to be a good jumping point for them to just get an idea of what this character is?
I would hope so. But I think they can kind of read any of the various Spider-Man Noir things and just get a different take on them because they're all so different.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's another thing too.
So it must be frustrating if you've been reading all along because each guy is like, no, this is the way you do it. It's like, you guys don't agree on anything, do you?
It's interesting, man. I'm looking forward to the show at the same time with this run that you're doing.
And when remind the audience, when does issue 1 come out, Eric?
I think it's October 2nd.
Okay.
I think
so,
is
yeah,
the
too.
on sale date for, because I'm doing a store signing, so it better be out.
Well, you're gonna be there whether the comic's out or not.
Yeah,
You'll
I'll be
at the
there.
store.
I'll just be like, oh, I guess I'm signing back issues. What do you got?
So yeah, everybody make sure you add that to your pull list.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
There's gonna be cool variant covers, like he mentioned. But if you haven't seen his original art, if you don't know who and what Spider-Man he's done, here's some of his art
oh
that
yeah, there we go.
you
And Eric
know.
That
was
was a
showing us that he's
that
got
was
a
a
stack of
commission.
it
That,
behind him. So
yeah, that wasn't even from anything. That was a commission that I had done at I don't even know where I drew it. It could be anywhere.
Well, that's the best part. Me and Nasser love art. We're big art fans. We like having original art, sketch covers done. I do.
Cool.
But one of the questions I ask a lot of artists and creators: are you doing digital? Or are you still doing full original? Or are you doing half and half?
I'm doing originals. Zach,
Oh wow!
on here.
Dang.
we're gonna see some.
I'll show you how big that Spider-Man Noir art is.
Oh
Oh wow!
wow!
It's huge.
What is that?
It's
18 by 24 or?
Oh, it's way big.
Okay. Wow.
Wow! How long did it take you to do that?
I don't know. It was done over a couple days, and it's never like sit down and do it from front to back. It's always like, oh, I'm
Wow!
doing this. Oh, I'm got to do something else over here. Oh, I'm back over. It's never completely linear. Very seldom do I start something from start to finish.
So then do
Nasser.
you scan that, Eric, and then send it to your colorist?
Yes,
Or-
it's 4
Okay.
scans, and then I have to piece it together in Photoshop, and every page is a pain in the ass.
So why do you
But
work
yeah,
that big?
well, I started getting stuff lettered on computer instead of lettered on the boards, and I realized once I'd started that it didn't matter what size I worked at, I could do anything. And I known that comics used to be drawn 12 and a half by 18 and a half because I've got some old original art. So I took one of my pages from a regular issue of Dragon that I did, and I just went to the photocopy place, and I kept enlarging it till the interior box was 12 and a half inches wide. And then I basically made myself a template so that I could add a bleed to the outside of the old original art size. So this is like even bigger than old comic book original art. So these are like
Mhm.
extra big.
Oh, okay.
Wow!
But I wanted to try it out, see what it felt like. And it was pretty fun just to
Yeah,
be
that's
able to
cool.
work that big.
So do you have
So
dibs already on that one?
I probably will hang on to it for a little while.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, that's what and it's cool that people are going digital half and a half because you get it done faster, deadlines. But when they go full digital, I mean, it hurts me because
Yeah,
there's so
no,
much.
no. I know there's
Yeah,
guys who do an amazing work, and it's like, oh, this doesn't exist.
yeah,
That's I mean, it's awesome because you can draw all kinds of stuff that you can't draw ordinarily just by, hey, I'll just drag in this reference here and draw on top of it. Awesome. Look at that car. I'm suddenly really good.
no, and just like we were talking before the interview, guys, if you didn't know, that back corner is a stack of all his original art. Like he has his original art. That is priceless. That is, to me, that is priceless right there.
Well,
I'm sure someone
yeah,
will put a price on it.
yeah, somebody will, I mean, once I'm in the grave, my kids will just be like, take it. So keep your eyes on heritage because they'll all be there eventually.
Well, you're up there, sir. The reason why me and Nasser do this podcast is because we want people to know who the legends are and the people who are the pioneers, because you are a pioneer. I mean,
Oh.
You and McFarlane and
See,
I
now
mean
they're
you.
fresher. I had no idea.
Well, I mean you literally y'all did something that was out of the ordinary and created this company that has been here for years and is continue to go and
Yeah.
continue to put out great comics. And
It is
to,
crazy how many years it's been at this point.
yeah,
Because
Mhm.
it's really crept up on me, you know?
What's your
It's like,
involvement now, Eric? I saw your title is CFO. So are you dealing with budgets and
no,
stuff like
no.
that every day? Or?
No, we're all of those titles are basically honorary because
Okay.
as part of our structure of the corporation, we need to have this, and this. And it's like, all right, I'll be that guy.
So you're
Uh,
not having to do payroll every two
no,
weeks?
I'm not doing payroll. So yeah, in terms of my day-to-day stuff, there's very little that I have to do. Occasionally, somebody will somebody who doesn't know, the publisher or doesn't know anybody else will approach me and go, "Hey, how do I get my book into Image?" And I'll guide them in the right direction as to who they need to actually talk to. But
wow.
there's not a lot of that
What
ends up.
about when your title was publisher? Were you more hands-on then?
Oh yeah, yeah, I had to be. Yeah, I
Oh,
was I
okay.
was I was going into the office and I had a bunch of people who were working underneath me and I was trying to find different creators to do books and bring them on board and then
That's what I was
there's
going to ask. Was publisher like part scouting? Were you out there looking for new talent
yeah,
to bring in?
yeah.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
lot of it. Well, there's a bunch of new talent and then there's a bunch of old talent that hadn't done stuff at Image before. So
Mhm.
you want to get some of those guys. And then there was also a few books that we were publishing where I was just like, man, these logos are unreadable, or there was some structural problem with the book where
Mhm.
as a publisher coming on going, look, I want to right the ship as much as I can, and I want each of you to be doing books that are as successful as they can be. How can I help to make your book more successful? And in some
Wow.
cases, I was, there were other writers and other artists and stuff who were doing their own books, and I was like, your character design on this isn't as strong as it could be. You're having a real tough time even maintaining that look from one panel to another. How can I help make this better? I was drawing logos for people and even in some cases designing costumes for people and
Oh, wow.
doing all sorts of stuff that you doing cover sketches for the books that I had nothing to do with, and
Yeah.
Wow.
you never know
Yeah.
what ended up being on the book, but it happened.
So what is your day to day now? Do you maintain like certain work hours where you try to work on Dragon, or is it just whenever it comes to you? Or
It's chaos. It is. Like I have a day a week where I go to a coffee shop and just sit down and draw comics in a coffee shop for the good part of the morning, and then come home and eat lunch and go on, have a late lunch on that day. Like, so tomorrow I'll be sitting in a coffee shop from 10 to 2 drawing comics and
Wow.
couple there's you end up uh running into other people who like to draw, and suddenly you're joined by a couple other people who are just sitting there and you just shoot the breeze and draw comics all morning.
Well, that's good. It sounds like a nice, relaxing
So
life
Yeah.
yeah,
now.
no, that's a fun day. And but it's usually, get up, try to get some work done early on, answer emails first thing in the morning, and then get on to whatever you need to get on to. At this point, I've sent in all the plots for the Spiderman Noir. I think it's just a mini series, right? It's like
Hmm.
Five
five
issues.
five issues. So
Yeah.
I've plotted out all those, and then when stuff needs to be scripted, I'll pound out a script for that. And, at the meantime, I'm drawing Dragon when I can. And it's amazing amount of stuff that just you end up having to do
It just
that
fills
just,
the hours.
it just does. Because
Yeah.
it's like, somebody over here wants to do toys, but their toys look funky, and you got to send back like drawing on top of their whatever models that they've got. Somebody else does, oh, we're putting together a trade paperback and you need to do all this design stuff and come up with something to call Josh Eichorn and, whatever. And there's always just little nonsense that needs to go on.
Wow.
And in your
Yeah.
mind, Eric, do you have an end for Dragon, or are you going to be 98 and still pounding out issues?
No, there's no, because the problem is that I don't know where, when, and where the end will
Oh, okay.
be. So, if it was like, hey, guess what? Terminal cancer, you're going to be dead in 2 months. My ending is going to be quite a bit different than it would be if, I'm sitting there going, okay, 20 years from
But if
now.
unfortunately, if that was a thing, so you would end it, you wouldn't let anybody ever take up Dragon?
I don't want to read anybody else's Dragon while I'm alive. So, it's sort of like, okay, I'm gone. Once I'm gone, have at it, do whatever the hell you want. I stop caring once I'm dead. But up until that point, I care a lot. So, are there places that I want to go with the book? Absolutely. Do I know what I want to do in issue 300? I have a pretty damn good idea. Do I know where I want to be in issue 463? No, I don't. So it's not like I've written out a list of all the possible issue numbers and jotted down a line for, in this issue, it takes place 16 years from now. So Amy's getting married. It's like, no idea. It could be any number of things.
Well, we look forward to many, many more Dragon issues, sir.
Yeah.
As do I.
So for people who are going to pick up this book in 3 words, what would you entice? Well,
3 words.
or what would
Lord.
what would be the best way to describe to entice people to buy this Spider-Man Noir series?
I have no idea. That's thankfully not my job. So, it just I mean it's self-contained. You don't need to have read any previous Spider-Man Noir story. You can really just read this. I kind of treat it the first issue as though he's done some dimensional traveling or whatever and has been back now for a month or so. So he's really just like he's seen the Spider-Verse and he knows how crazy it is out there, but he's back to being a regular guy, being a private eye, and he's got a new kind of situation. He's got a new landlord, and he's got a new office, and then but Mary Jane and Aunt May and whatever are still there, and their lives have changed somewhat from previous stories because time has gone on for them. So as far as they're concerned, Peter's been gone for a couple months, and so Aunt May's didn't fare too well with him being missing in action, and she was all fretting and worrying and having health issues, and Mary Jane wasn't so stoked on the idea of him off risking his life someplace else in some other country or dimension, whatever. So that has strained their relationship.
Wow.
So I give you enough little bits of that something's gone on, but we don't really get to see what that something was particularly. And we just kind of take it from here's the new status quo and go.
Okay.
And off we go to the races
Well,
with
you
that.
had me at he knows what the Spider-Verse is.
Yeah. So there's something. I mean, they're not necessarily going, hey, and this Spider Ham was saying to me the other day. There's not a lot of that.
Well, that would have had
but
me.
There's
then.
definitely there's a voiceover in this, much like in a Philip Marlowe kind of thing, where you really get the lay of the land of, okay, here's what's going on, and he's constantly talking throughout the story and giving you a little bit of background, a little bit of this and that, and it's pretty fun, I gotta say. It's just I like the back and forth and the dialogue, and just writing some of these characters just being kind of snippy with each other, and it's been fun writing these kind of characters again.
And if anyone wants to keep up with what you've got coming, Erik, do you do any social media or website or anything?
Oh, I'm sure I do. I'm
all right. Well, just people
whatever.
Look for it out there.
I'm on Facebook. There's savagedragon.com, and there's a wiki there that gives you 1 million characters and all their backgrounds, and it's exhaustive. I'm not on what am I on? I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Facebook. I'm on whatever else.
Instagram.
I'm on those. I am, but I've never quite got a handle on how to do that. So I barely post anything, and I'm always being told, "Hey, you got 9,000 messages." And I'm like, I don't know where any of these are. So
all right,
I'm no
well,
help.
go follow Erik on Facebook and Blue Sky. There you go.
Yeah.
And Threads. I'm also on
okay.
Threads, so there's that.
All right, well, that's enough for people to find you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's enough, right? What do you need?
So, guys, go out, pre-order your copy. There's going to be a number of variants, awesome covers. You want to pick this up. Don't miss out. And
all right, there's a hard sell. Somebody's got to do it. I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
That's what we're here for. Taking the time of your busy day, sir, and coming on Countdown. We appreciate it. Talking about the working in the industry and where you've started, where you've ended up. We thank you again, and we look forward to
You're quite welcome.
400 more, Savage Dragons.
Thank you so much, Erik.
You're quite welcome, guys. Thanks for
having me.
Have a great
one. Bye.